The rain was relentless, hammering my windshield as I drove through Milwaukee's gray streets. A cardboard box on the passenger seat, heavier than its contents. Just hours ago, my world had collapsed in a 5-minute meeting. "We're letting you go," my boss had said, his voice cold and final. 28 years at Carver Industries, erased with a single sentence. My name's Evelyn Carter, I'm 60, and until that Friday afternoon, I was the senior compliance manager at one of the city's largest manufacturing firms. My pension was 3 days from vesting, the culmination of a lifetime's work. As I gripped the steering wheel, the truth settled like a stone in my chest. This wasn't a layoff. It was a betrayal, meticulously timed to rob me of what I'd earned. But what they didn't know was that I'd been watching, documenting, and preparing. This was the start of a fight that would unravel their lies and change everything. The day had begun like any other. I'd arrived at Carver's sprawling headquarters, a glass and steel monolith that had been my professional home since I was 32. I'd started as a junior auditor, fresh off a degree in accounting, married to my high school sweetheart, Ben, with a toddler son, Ryan, at home. Over the years, I'd climbed to senior compliance manager, earning respect for my meticulous eye and unyielding principles. I wasn't flashy. I didn't schmooze at corporate retreats or charm executives. At galas. My strength was in the details, spotting patterns others missed, ensuring Carver stayed within legal bounds. My pension, set to vest on Monday, was my reward for decades of loyalty. It meant security, a chance to travel, to spoil my grandkids, to live without the constant hum of financial worry since Ben's death a decade ago. But at 3 p.m., everything shifted. My desk phone rang. "Evelyn, can you come to my office?" Michael Warner's voice was clipped. Michael, the new director of operations, had joined 6 months ago with a reputation for slashing costs and boosting profits. His streamlining often meant cutting corners, and we'd clashed when I refused to sign off on his latest plan. A cost-cutting scheme that violated federal safety regulations. I'd assumed this meeting was another attempt to pressure me. I grabbed my notebook and headed upstairs. Michael's office was all polish. Mahogany desk, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the Milwaukee River. He sat back in his leather chair, his tailored suit a stark contrast to my practical blazer. "How long have you been with us, Evelyn?" he asked, his tone oddly casual, like we were chatting over coffee. 28 years, I said, my eyes catching a manila folder on his desk. And 359 days, to be exact. The precision wasn't bravado, it was habit. I tracked everything. Dates, numbers, patterns. It's what made me good at my job. He nodded, almost to himself, then slid the folder toward me. "Due to financial restructuring, your position's been eliminated. Effective immediately." The words hit like a physical blow, but I kept my face neutral. Carver had just reported record profits, $1.2 billion in the last quarter. Financial restructuring? My mind raced. "This is your severance package," he continued, tapping the folder. 3 months' pay. Sign by Monday, or you get nothing. Security will escort you to your desk to collect your things. The room felt smaller, the air thinner. I should have been furious or terrified or begging for answers. Instead, a strange calm washed over me. This wasn't random. The timing, 3 days before my pension vested, was too precise. Michael's gaze avoided mine, his fingers drumming on the desk. He was nervous. That told me everything. "Thank you for the opportunity," I said, picking up the folder. His eyebrows lifted, expecting tears or a scene, but I'd spent my career reading between the lines. This was no accident. It was a move to silence me, to bury what I knew. Lisa from HR was waiting outside, her face pale. "Evelyn, I'm so sorry." she whispered as we walked to my cubicle. A security guard, Tom, hovered nearby, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. I packed quickly. A photo of Ben from our last vacation, his smile warm against a Lake Michigan sunset. A small fern Ryan had given me when he left for college. A worn plaque for 25 years of service. "This isn't right," Lisa said, glancing at Tom. "It's fine," I replied. But inside, I was already piecing it together. For 3 years, I'd flagged financial irregularities at Carver. Padded revenue reports, backdated safety certifications, loan applications with falsified data. I'd sent memos, presented evidence, and been dismissed with vague assurances or orders to focus elsewhere. Michael had buried my latest report, the one exposing his non-compliant plan. This firing was retaliation, plain and simple. Tom held the lobby door as I left. "Have a good weekend, Ms. Carter," he mumbled, shifting uncomfortably. "I will," I said, meeting his eyes. The rain was cold as I crossed the parking lot, the box under my arm growing damp. The drive home was a blur. Milwaukee's familiar. Landmarks. Our old church, Ryan's high school, fading into the gray. I thought of the sacrifices I'd made for Carver. Missing Ryan's recitals for late-night audits, cutting family trips short for emergencies, spending countless evenings poring over records no one else cared about. I'd given them my prime years, believing in the promise of stability. Now they'd discarded me like an outdated machine. At my small bungalow, I set the box on the kitchen table and made tea, the ritual grounding me. The severance packet was insulting. 3 months' pay for signing away all claims against Carver. No pension, no health benefits, no acknowledgement of 28 years. A clause demanded my signature by 5 p.m. Monday, a pressure tactic to make me act fast, scared, and alone. They were counting on it. I set the papers aside and went to my study, where a fireproof safe sat behind a shelf of photo albums. Inside was my insurance policy. 3 years of documents, emails, reports, meeting notes, detailing Carver's fraud. I'd saved them not out of distrust, but instinct. My job was to protect the company, even from itself. Now, they'd protect me. The files were meticulous. Loan applications with inflated collateral, revenue reports overstated by 15%, emails from Michael instructing staff to correct safety logs after shipments. Over 900 pages, each a piece of a puzzle I'd tried to solve internally. I'd reported every issue through proper channels. 38 memos, 14 presentations, 7 meeting requests, only 1 granted with no follow-up. Michael's arrival had escalated the problem, his efficiencies amplifying the fraud. My latest report, flagging his regulatory violations, had been my last act before today's ambush. I scrolled my phone to Sarah Nguyen, a former Carver CFO now at the SEC. We hadn't spoken in years, but she'd always respected my work, even when others found it tedious. "Evelyn?" she answered, concern in her voice. "It's late. Everything okay?" I laid it out. The firing, the pension, the documents. "This sounds like whistleblower retaliation," she said, her tone sharp. "If your evidence is as solid as you say, it's securities fraud. Don't sign anything. Can you meet my team Monday?" I agreed, a spark of resolve igniting. "Secure those files," she added, "and watch your back." Saturday morning I woke with purpose. I dressed in my Navy suit, the one I wore for tough negotiations, and spent hours organizing my evidence. 3 sets. 1 for the SEC, 1 for my lawyer, 1 as leverage. I indexed every document, cross-referencing dates and players. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Lisa, Michael, Carver's counsel. Voicemails piled up. Michael. Evelyn, we need that signature today. I can stop by. Counsel. Non-compliance risks your severance. Their panic was telling. They knew I had something dangerous. At 4 p.m., my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, Michael stood. On my porch, an envelope in hand, his polished shoes out of place on my cracked steps. "Evelyn, let's make this easy," he called. I stayed silent, watching as he shoved the envelope in my mailbox and drove off in his BMW. Inside was another severance copy, with a scrawled note. Final chance. Signed by 9 a.m. Monday. I tucked it with the others, untouched. Ryan called that night his weekly check-in. "Mom, you sound off," he said from Seattle, where he worked as an engineer. I hesitated, then told him everything. "They fired you 3 days before your pension?" he said, voice rising. "That's illegal. I'm flying out." "Stay put," I said, his anger warming me. "I'm handling it." As darkness fell, I sat in my living room, the safe's contents spread out. I tried to save Carver from within, believing in its mission. They'd chosen to bury me. Now I'd unearth the truth. Monday, I walked into the SEC's downtown office, briefcase heavy with evidence. Sarah met me in the lobby, her face serious, but kind. "You're doing the right thing," she said, leading me to a conference room. Laura Kim, an enforcement attorney, and David Patel, a forensic accountant, waited. "Ms. Carter," Laura said, "this becomes official once you share. No reversing course." "I'm ready," I said, my voice steady. For 4 hours, I walked them through the files. Revenue inflation starting 3 years ago. Safety certifications backdated post-shipment. Loans with fabricated assets. I showed 38 memos I'd sent, all ignored. David's eyes widened at the revenue reports. "They've overstated profits by 13% for 2 years," he said. "That's textbook fraud." Laura leaned in. "You link this to your termination?" "Directly," I said. "I flagged Michael's latest plan, non-compliant cuts. He buried it, then fired me before my pension vested." Sarah nodded. "We'll need your formal statement. The investigation's confidential until we act, but this is strong." I left, exhausted but resolute. The truth was in motion. That afternoon, Lisa called, voice trembling. "Evelyn, the board's freaking out. Michael's locked in his office and SEC rumors are flying." "My pension?" I asked. "On hold, pending review." An hour later, Robert Klein, board chair, called. "Miss Carter, we need to meet tomorrow. This is sensitive." "Only with my attorney and SEC reps," I said. A long pause. "We'll arrange it." Tuesday, I met Klein at the office of my lawyer, Karen Holt. Klein looked like he hadn't slept. "We've rescinded your termination," he said, handing me papers. "Full benefits, pension secure. We're investigating your concerns." Karen cut in. "Evelyn reported these for 3 years. You ignored her, then fired her to dodge her pension. That's not oversight. It's intent." Klein fidgeted. "We're offering a consulting role post-retirement. We need her expertise." I spoke. "Do you?" I filed 38 reports, sent 14 memos, asked for 7 meetings. 1 granted, no action. "Where was your need then?" Silence. "I'll cooperate with the SEC and your review," I said. "But my support hinges on what you do, not what you say." Karen grinned as we left. "You owned that. Wednesday, the news hit. SEC investigates. Carver Industries for fraud." The stock tanked 28%. A memo announced Michael's suspension. Carver's lawyers sent a letter confirming my reinstatement and paid leave. A flimsy attempt at damage control. Thursday, Karen and I met Patricia Cole, interim CEO, at her office. "Evelyn," she said, "you've exposed a cancer. Your terminations, void, pension locked in, and we're offering 5 years' salary, lifetime health coverage, and a board apology." She slid over a folder. "We want you to head a new ethics division." I closed it. "Michael? The board?" "Criminal charges are coming," she said. "We won't protect them, but the fight wasn't over." That night, I saw a news clip. Michael, in an interview, claimed I'd been fired for performance issues and was bitter about a missed promotion. A smear to discredit me. Karen called. "Don't respond. The SEC's issuing a statement tomorrow affirming your whistleblower status." I nodded, but his lies stung. I went to my bank, where a safe deposit box held a sealed envelope I'd stored 2 years ago. Emails between Michael's predecessor and board members discussing creative accounting during a merger. I hadn't included them in my SEC files. They weren't directly tied to current issues, but now they showed the fraud's roots. I called Sarah. "I have more evidence. It changes the story. Friday, I met Sarah's team again. The emails stunned them. "This proves the fraud predates Michael," David said. "The board's claim of ignorance is crumbling." By Monday, Carver's board called an emergency meeting. Sarah updated me. 3 members resigned on the spot. Michael's blaming past practices, but it's falling apart. That afternoon, Carver announced 4 resignations, including Klein, and Michael's termination for cause. The stock dropped another 10%. Weeks later, I sat in a federal courtroom, watching Michael and 2 board members plead guilty to securities fraud. Michael's arrogance was gone, his glance at me heavy with defeat. Carver's scandal became a corporate cautionary tale, my name linked to reform. I declined the ethics role, choosing to consult with the SEC on whistleblower protections. My evidence sparked a wave of corporate disclosures, earning me a 15% SEC award. $4.2 million are with it. I funded a scholarship for compliant students, named for Ben. Ryan moved to Milwaukee with his kids, and we built new memories at my lake house. Picnics, stargazing, laughter I'd missed during my Carver years. One night, Ryan asked, "Mom, regret staying so long?" I thought of the sacrifices, the betrayal, the fight. "No," I said. "It taught me integrity's worth everything, and it showed you." He hugged me. Always did. Carver survived. Smaller, with new protocols. They send me reports, which I read with quiet pride. Some call this revenge. I don't. I did what I always did. Documented, reported, stood firm. This time the world heard me. And in that truth, I found not just justice, but a life reclaimed. The rain had stopped by the time I reached home that first night, the cardboard box a silent passenger. I set it on the table, next to the unopened severance packet, and poured another cup of tea. The house was quiet, Ben's absence a familiar ache. He'd been my rock, the one who'd tease me about my superpower for details, who'd believed in me when I doubted myself. "You're unstoppable, Ev," he'd say, his grin lighting up the room. I wished he were here now, to see me fight. I opened the safe again, spreading the files across my desk. Each document was a thread in a tapestry of deceit, woven over years. The earliest, from 3 years ago, showed a $2 million discrepancy in a loan application, collateral inflated to secure better terms. I'd reported it, only to be told it was a clerical error. Then came the revenue reports, padded to impress investors. I'd flagged them in a memo, citing specific invoices that didn't match shipments. The response? We'll look into it. They never did. Michael's arrival had turned a slow drip into a flood. His cost-cutting plan, outsourcing safety checks to a shady vendor, violated OSHA standards. I documented it, citing regulations, and sent it to him directly. His reply was a curt email. "Focus on priorities, Evelyn. This isn't one." A week later, I was out. But they'd underestimated me. I wasn't just a compliance manager. I was a keeper of truths, and I'd saved every receipt. Saturday's work was methodical, almost meditative. I cross-referenced emails with reports, building a timeline of fraud. A 2019 email from Michael's predecessor instructed staff to adjust revenue figures before an audit. A 2020 memo from a board member dismissed my concerns about safety logs as overzealous. Each piece was a brick in the case I'd present. By noon, I had 3 neat stacks, each with a cover sheet summarizing the contents. I locked 2 in the safe and kept 1 for Monday. The phone calls intensified. Lisa left a second voicemail. "Evelyn, please call me. This is a mess." Michael's tone grew sharp. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." The council's message was a veiled threat. Unsigned agreements have consequences. I let them pile up, their urgency fueling me. They were scared, and they should be. At 5 p.m., I took a break, stepping onto my porch. The air was crisp, the neighborhood quiet. A neighbor waved, unaware of the storm in my life. I waved back, grounding myself in the normalcy. Ryan's call that night was harder. He was angry, protective, ready to fight for me. "Mom, this is theft. They can't take your pension." I calmed him, explaining the SEC plan. "I'm not helpless," I said. "I've got evidence and I'm using it." His pride steadied me. "You're a badass, Mom," he said, and I laughed for the first time in days. After we hung up, I looked at Ben's photo on the mantel. "Wish me luck," I whispered. Monday's SEC meeting was a marathon. Laura and David asked probing questions, testing the evidence's strength. "You've got dates, names, and signatures," David said, flipping through pages. "This is bulletproof." Laura outlined next steps. A formal investigation, subpoenas for Carver's records, interviews with executives. "You're protected as a whistleblower," she said. "They can't retaliate further." I nodded, but I knew Carver would try. They'd already shown their hand. The fallout was swift. Lisa's call confirmed the board's panic, and Klein's request for a meeting showed their desperation. Tuesday's confrontation with Klein was a turning point. His offer, reinstatement, pension, a cushy role, was tempting, but hollow. They weren't sorry. They were scared. Karen's sharp defense and my own words cut through their platitudes. I wasn't just a victim. I was a force they hadn't anticipated. The media storm on Wednesday changed the narrative. Carver's stock crash was front-page news, and Michael's suspension was a public admission of guilt. But his interview, smearing my reputation, was a low blow. Claiming I was a disgruntled underperformer? My performance reviews, exemplary for 28 years, proved otherwise. The SEC's statement, issued Thursday, shut him down. Evelyn Carter's evidence is credible and under active investigation. The emails I'd added from the safe deposit box sealed his fate, showing the fraud's deeper roots. The courtroom scene, months later, was surreal. Michael, once untouchable, looked small in his suit. His plea a formality. The board members' guilty pleas followed, their resignations already history. Carver's restructuring was painful but necessary. New leadership implementing reforms I'd long advocated. The scholarship fund, named for Ben, was my way of giving back, ensuring others could fight for integrity without the personal cost I'd paid. At my lake house, Ryan's kids ran through the grass, their laughter a balm. "You're a hero, Grandma," my granddaughter said, holding up a news clipping about the scandal. I smiled. "Just did my job, kiddo." But Ryan's question lingered. Regret? No. The years at Carver shaped me, taught me resilience, and gave me a legacy beyond money. I'd shown my family and myself that truth isn't just a principle, it's a weapon. And in wielding it, I'd won more than justice. I'd won freedom.